That's the sound. Yeah, so we were just talking about this chart. Man, it's a splay chart. We've got planets going off in every direction, doing their own thing, like the Spice Girls. Um, this is going to be a really interesting session. Did anybody have any first impressions looking at the chart? Anything sort of come to mind, or any response? Anything to say about just looking at it from a surface point of view?
I got something to say.
Shoot.
Okay. I see the cardinal is 12, so I see it's a lot of a person who likes to start things a lot, and they may not know how to stay still. Like they might like to change a lot, very adjustable. And they may be flexible and kind of like they don't like to stay stuck in on one thing. I also see a lot of water. So this person may be sensitive, emotional, and feel things very deeply. And I'm looking at the houses, the angular, the succeeding, and cadent, and I see the succeeding house. Wouldn't that be more like the fixed house, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so I guess right there is where I'm kind of like it's 2 for fixed, but then the succeeding house is say 7. So maybe the person is a little more stubborn than I thought. Just looking at the fixed, the sign modality.
There's quite a bit of this in this chart, actually. You see one message being expressed in a certain way, then you see another one pushing itself out there too. So it doesn't get any easier the more we look at it. So you're absolutely right in your assessment. So let's break it down. We've got 12 in cardinal, so overwhelmingly cardinal chart in terms of sign modalities. We've got a lot of mutability. So this is a person who likes to be moving, likes things to be moving forward in a progressive direction. However, that direction can change at the drop of a hat. And we're just speculating based on what we see, Nancy. We're not saying this is the sort of person that you are, but this is sort of what we're seeing at the surface level. But not a lot of fixed energy. So as you're moving, your feet barely touch the ground as things are happening. People with a placement like that too, especially with lots of cardinal energy, not only like to be moving themselves, they like the people around them to be moving too. And it's important for them to see that everything's moving on a track or going in a particular direction. In terms of sign elements, we're generally pretty balanced, other than water does sort of shoot up there a little bit more. It's almost double the next highest element there too. So as you correctly saw there, Crystal, we do have a lot of water on the chart. It's distributed out across the chart, so there's quite a lot going on from that point of view. And in terms of house modalities, that's a fairly balanced. So succeedent is pulling out a little more than the other two, but there's not a lot of difference there. So in terms of what the houses are saying, we're sort of balanced. It's rare to see, well, based on the scores, we've got a score of 17 there. There's no way you'd get an even distribution across that. So we've got a little bit of a lean to more towards fixed in terms of house modalities, but it's fairly balanced. So at a surface level, that sort of sums up what we're seeing on the chart. And when you look at this whole pattern here right now, it's all sort of distributed out the way that it is. It's well, it's an interesting puzzle to unpack, like we said. Now we're using equal. This is the house system that was the chart was put up on the Facebook group, so we'll stick to it. And I think when you've got a splay chart where everything's going off in its particular direction, there's benefits in using equal. I think that emphasizes that in a lot of way, at least in my opinion. Does anybody else at this point? It's probably an interesting discussion, and this is a good chart to look at that with. Would anybody else agree with that assessment, or would you be more likely to look at Placidus as a system or something like that? And why would you do that?
It's hard for me to tell. Actually, I use Placidus and Whole House when I'm doing a chart at all times, because I never know exactly which one is the best one. I'm still struggling with that. And I think on one of your courses, you said that the Placidus is more spiritual, and the Whole House is more personality based. Was that what I was understanding? Something like that.
Equal, I think, is you look at the way that the different house systems are calculated. For me, Placidus is better for personality. If you really, really want to understand the person more, and you get different leanings and different sizes on the houses. It's a Hellenistic system. Of course, you get a bias in it too, depending on where you were born in the world. The further north or the further south you are, you start to get some big deviations happening on the chart.
Mhm.
But I think at a personality level, because it's all calculated from the sun, I like Placidus for personality work and for spiritual work, because it can show where growth and is happening in the chart, and where things are ebbing as well. But I think
Mhm.
for and often I'd also base my house system on what the client wants from the reading. I think for this one, Equalwood is a good fit, because we've got a lot going on here on the chart, and this is giving us a stable, clean canvas, and with the distribution happening the way that it's happening. You know what I mean? So I think just for the purpose of untangling this chart, equals a nice fit. And when I did look at it in Placidus, there's not a great deal of deviation. Yeah, that was sort of my feeling there. Again, too, I think, look, everybody's got their own house system that they're comfortable with. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. Even great astrologers will change in the course of a lifetime. Sorry, what was that? Sounded like somebody was talking. Even famous astrologers will change, that's your privilege as an astrologer. You go with what feels right. So what I thought might help us to simplify this chart down a bit is to start pulling out some of the white noise. So let's just look at planets. So we're taking out the nodes, some of the other white noise, like like Chiron, any asteroids, anything like that, and just looking at the planets as they are on the chart. How does that change the complexion of the chart? Does that sort of simplify things?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, it does for me as well.
Okay, so what are we seeing here? Just gut level, when you look at it straight away, what are you seeing?
Well, her
I
chart,
see that.
her chart ruler is going to be Venus, right? Because she's a Libra rising.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
I always look at the planets, the hemisphere and the quadrant. So I'm looking at the third quadrant. And it looks like this person, the bottom of the chart and the third quadrant seems to be the most active. I'm sorry, y'all. The kids in the background, if y'all can hear them. So
Right.
I would say, I'm so sorry. I would say that this person is more probably based on relationships, like family, work, and home. And they're probably introvert and more of a private person. So I would look at the quadrant and the hemisphere, and then I would look at the elements and stuff like we did, and then I look at the big three, or it's something that you said in the last chart reading where you're looking at the middle right there where the aspects are, and you see which placement has the most activity.
Where the energy is pointing to, where the most of the energy is pointing to, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I like the way he did that
Has
the
that
last time. I
changed
thought that
anything
made a lot of
when
sense.
you do that? When you look at it that way, do you see anything in that chart? Because when I looked at this chart before, when you look at it as it just is freshly generated, I didn't see any major
I don't
patterns
either.
there or anything like that. But there is one there. It's right there. It jumps right
It's
out.
like a kite or something.
We've got a yod
Oh, I don't
pointing
see
to
it.
the sun there, with Uranus at the top and from the ascendant.
Yep, there it is. I see it plain as day now that you brought it up.
Yeah. What do we know
Can you
about
say it
yod?
again? Because I don't see it.
A yod. We've got the sun down the bottom. I'm looking to the left all the time. I've got dual monitors. I've got two monitors. So mine is just in case people are wondering. We've got the sun down there in the 5th house. We've got Uranus up there in the 10th house, and we've got the ascendant. And that's created a yod pattern pointing off to the sun there.
Okay. Oh, that's a real good. That's like a spiritual one, ain't it?
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful placements. One of the most interesting. Let's put it that way. So what do we know about yods? Anybody want to give us a breakdown or just some key points?
Yods point towards some sort of fate or something that is her destiny, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a fated, from what I understand, it's a fated placement. It means that she's here for a certain purpose.
There's potential for a purpose. They call it the finger of God. So it's like God himself reaching
Yes.
down from his cloud wherever he's sitting and pointing and saying, that person there, right
Mhm.
there. And for the record, just having a yacht on the chart doesn't guarantee you're going to be famous. You're not going to be a world leader or anything like that. But the potential for that goes right up. It
Gotcha.
highlights a particular point on the chart where tremendous achievements can be made in the lifetime. Yeah.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and it's pointing to the sun, which is a really, really interesting placement there. We've got Uranus up the top there in the 10th house in Leo. So let's get a read on that. How would we interpret that?
Um, Leo, Uranus, maybe a lot of unexpected changes in your job, or maybe like a humanitarian, real confident, charming, maybe good with people, confident, um, but may move around work a lot. Or what do you call that? In when you like to start new things.
Career
Innovation.
changes. Yeah.
Say it again.
Could be career changes. Yeah, as you're saying. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, it
Yes,
was another word,
Uranus
but
is
yeah.
the planet of innovation. That's it.
Yes,
That's what
that's
you're
what I'm
looking
trying to
for.
say. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, and that's reflecting in her career, what she
Mhm,
does, what she's made her career out of, which we talked about, or which I think I referenced earlier, which she's a hospice nurse. So
Mm,
she cares for people. So she, that's something. It takes a special person to do that. You know what I mean? Like, she helps people transition from this realm to the next.
mhm.
So
Sounds
that's what
good. I
that
like.
yod's about. I think
Yes,
that's what that yod
sounds
is
right.
about.
Nancy, if I may ask, have you always been a hospice nurse?
No, I have not. I was an emergency room
Mm.
nurse over 25 years.
Okay. And so this is an evolution for you. You've decided your career's led you this way, or you've made the choice to become a hospice nurse.
Well, actually, a couple of reasons. I've always been interested in it and interested in, what actually occurs. And I have to work the rest of my life because us nurses don't have retirement. And I left
Mm,
the ER, but this was my other area of interest. And it's something that I can do the rest of my life. And I'm interested in it.
okay.
And
Okay. All right. So we've seen. So you were a theatre nurse for 25 years, and then you've chosen to move.
yes,
So maybe Uranus could express as that the career that you have may be based on the unexpected. There may be things happening within there. So as an you said you were an ER nurse, did you say?
yes, sir.
Okay, so you may not know from day to day what you're going to be presented with, and whatever happens, happens suddenly. So people may come in for a whole variety of reasons, and you need to be able to, which fits in nicely with that cardinal and that mutable energy. You need to be able to act, but re-gear for whatever the situation requires. So does that sound accurate?
Yes, it does.
Okay, okay. I think we're starting to get a
And
bit of.
the is very accurate as well.
Okay, okay. And that
And
Leo there may express as when something happens, you can't be lingering around waiting for other people to tell you what to do. You need to be able to take control. You need to be able to direct
and
from your role. Yeah.
true in both areas in hospice as well as the ER.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. Okay. So I think we're starting to get a bit of a read here. Okay. Now we've got an ascendant down here in Libra. So how do people see that expressing? What would we be looking at from that point of view? A Libra ascendant.
Um, Indecisive, maybe. I'm sorry. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
You think indecisive? I was thinking balance. The only reason I made that face is because I'm not a Libra ascendant, and I guess
Yeah.
I can
My,
be indecisive.
my son is too. My son is too. I thought about him. He's very He's very good with people. He's very charming, but he's very indecisive too.
Yeah, it's true.
And he likes to put people in front of him a lot. He's like but he's an Aquarius too. So
Me
I'm not
too.
sure if the people pleasing thing is like he puts a lot of people in front of him, and he's real honest and truthful. He don't like to hurt feelings, but he likes honesty and truth. But for the most part, he has a problem with making decisions. His mind can be everywhere. He can be doing 1,000. His mind could be going 1,000. He's very forgetful and things like that. So, yeah, but with it being in Aries, with the planet being in Aries, he may have a better, I'm sorry, Nancy, you may have a better chance of being balanced, because I could see Venus being a little more fierce in Aries. Would
Yeah,
that
that
sound
fiery
about right?
energy.
Yeah.
That
Because Libra
balance.
is all about balances. Yeah.
That air
Well,
and that fire, and then the Venus is
Mhm.
the ruling planet, and it's over there in the sixth house, so that's a good placement, I
Yeah.
think, right, Damien?
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
Mercury
It's-
being very close to it as well, which would indicate
Exactly.
that her communication style. Yeah, cool.
Mhm.
What you
Well,
think,
it's in
Nancy?
a service focused house as well. And there's a
Right.
trine running straight from that Venus and Aries in a fire sign up to that Uranus and Leo up in the 10th house. So
Right.
that may be a way that's activating that Venus there, and that may be expressing purely through a service point of view. You know, a lot of people talk about Libra as being indecisive, but quite often I see it as the struggle to please people, and
Yes.
it's not that they can't make their mind up. It's just that the variables can be a little overwhelming. And since
Yeah.
if they cannot get a good read on what another person wants, then they may not act. And that's not the same as indecisiveness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not in the negligent sense of the word. Indecisiveness can be somebody who just, for any number of reasons, doesn't make their mind up, and it's unpredictable which way they're going to go. But generally, for
Exactly.
Libras, you've got a fairly good idea where that indecisiveness is coming from. Often it's because they're trying to please everybody in a scenario. They don't want to create any losers with their choices. And the best thing we see here is Nancy's got this Venus in the 6th house, which you spotted there, Crystal, and that's trining up to Uranus up in the 10th house. So we've got a context. Whenever we're dealing with people in a pressure situation and things like that, we know how to act. We know what the priorities are. We know what the tools are that we need to pick up. The interesting thing is, if we look at the ascendant, though, and we look at that Venus over there in the 6th house, they're square each other. Sorry, they're opposite each other. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So and in a way, that's like it's a really interesting placement. And when you sit and think about it, it makes quite a bit of sense there too, which in a way severs the potential for that indecisiveness. Because from an ascendant point of view, if my ascendant is telling me that I need to please everybody, well, these fire placements saying over here, well, you don't have the luxury of that. You know what I mean? In a given
Exactly.
situation where you need to act and you need to do things, you know what's important, and you'll make your choice based on whatever arithmetic presents itself, you know, as being the most vital way to improve, you know, odds in a given situation. How does that sound, Nancy? Does it sound like it might be fairly accurate, or do you have more to add to that?
It certainly does, because you have to adjust and read that person and approach them in a way that they can relate to you.
Yeah. Okay.
And it also could second quadrant, like I was saying earlier. I might have said third, but I meant to say second. That also says that too, the whole Libra thing. The importance of relationships, other people, home and everything like that. And it's kind of also goes back to your ascendant, relationships with people. So relationships, is that important to you? Relationships? Not actual romantic relationships, but relationships in general, like your friends, your family, and things like that. Is that really important to you?
It is. And right, on a limited basis and a limited number, because you really can't be what I want to be to people when you've got a crowd. So it's more, and when you said something about a recluse, I don't think recluse is the exact word, but it's more that I limit my circle. So the relationships are stronger.
That makes sense. And that fits in what she's saying, Crystal, about everything being concentrated there at the lower half of the chart. So, you know, it's more about quality than quantity when it comes to
Right.
people. but it's also about protecting and preserving your own energy too, I guess, in
Exactly.
the same way.
Mhm.
Is that a part of your personality, Nancy? Are you sort of, would you say you're introverted?
I actually was very introverted as I've grown. I've become more extroverted just basically because I felt the need to create that part of myself. Because of the job that I do. I mean, you can't just go in there and be introverted. And um,
Mhm.
so basically, I had to recreate my personality. I was a person in high school that didn't want anybody to know I was there as long as she didn't know
Mhm.
and left me alone. I was okay.
That
Okay.
makes
And
sense.
that's
That
it's
wraps
up.
up that whole uh,
Pluto, 11th house.
well, but also just the placement we've been talking about. I mean, the ascendant is your critical self. It's the self that you create in order to be able to interact with the world. Yeah, it's your critique on the world around you and the relationships that you have on what you want, and you create a personality in order to be able to move in that world. And you've just said that you've grown up introverted, but you've realized that in order to be able to live the sort of life that you want to live and do the things you want to do, you've had to create a personality or create strengths in yourself that enable you to do that. And that's pushed this energy over to this fire side of the chart. We've got Venus in Aries, and we've got Uranus up there in the 10th house in Leo as well. We're going to manifest that energy. We're going to invest in that energy, and we're going to nurture that as a personality so we can be more effective as a person and get the things that we want.
More confident.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And nobody does confidence better than those two signs. Yeah. Okay. So I feel like we're on the right track here. Before we go on too far, and this is something we normally do every time we do a chart reading, but we haven't done it this time, or I guess I haven't initiated it. Is there anything in particular that you want from this reading? Should we be looking in particular areas of the chart for anything?
Um,
It's
not
okay to
that I
say
can,
no. Yep.
not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, I guess security as I get older would be
Hmm.
something that would be very important to me, and how to, I've always been the one person that took care of Nancy. And I think security as I age, because I see every day, people that don't have anybody or that have not prepared well. And I think that's one concern. I don't know if that was what you were looking for.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, so we'll keep that in mind as we're moving through the chart. Yeah, yeah, okay. It's going to be an interesting reading. Like I said at the beginning, it's such a challenging chart to look at. So I think we're gonna dissect it as we go, and then we're going to discover things along the way. Let's keep going the way we're going there. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add? Just looking at this chart right now, under the assumption that we are going to move on, we're going to come back and look at key areas. But just from stripping away that other white noise on the chart, we've managed to uncover a yod there. But does anybody else have any surface observations? Because I want to drill down on this a little more. Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to click this again. So let's strip out the transpersonal planets and just look at the personal planets on the chart. Does that change anything for anybody?
Yeah, we have those triangles, or I forget the
That's
name
right.
for it.
Yeah, trines. Absolutely right. One of the reasons you do this is personal planets are all about us. Transpersonal planets are all about our generation, the generation we were born into, and the values of that generation. So if we strip away the transpersonal planets and just look at the personal planets more, we get more of an understanding of us, as who we are, and what's important to us, and how we're most likely to act. You know what I mean? This is the part of the chart. These planets, these inner planets, tend to be the more fluid. While there's change happening all the time, the way that it manifests on the chart tends to happen in these particular areas on the chart there. So what are we seeing here? Does anybody see any changes or anything different that may alter our view on what we're looking at previously, or may build on that?
I see Jupiter in the second house, which is a very fortunate placement.
Yep.
It is, and it's in a trine, the aspect to Mercury over there in the 6th house, which is the house of that we were talking about earlier, daily routines and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So that's a fortunate placement too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? One of the pieces of information that Nancy gave us was we need to create a new personality in order to be more effective. I'm oversimplifying when I say it that way,
Mhm.
but one of the challenges to overcome is obviously that Pisces sun isn't the type of person that she's talking about. Do you know what I'm saying? It's that it's not that dynamic, it's not that direct, it's not that more confident version of herself. So, but what we're seeing is we've got Jupiter down here in a fire sign, running a trine straight up to Mercury in Pisces. So, what it may suggest is the particular part of our Pisces personality we're going to work on and invest in is our communication, is our ability to talk to other people, and it's going to be based on values. It's going to be based on those second house things, and they give us something tangible to work with, and that allows us to emphasize part of our Pisces sun that we feel will be most valuable in moving forward in the goal. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And isn't the moon falling in Capricorn? Or is it in detriment? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, it's not happy there, that's for sure.
And what about Mercury and Pisces? Is that ain't that a fall too?
Yeah, and you know what? But I think one of the challenges with Mercury in Pisces is Mercury Pisces placements. They tend to talk about everything, and they tend to talk about what comes in. Whatever they absorb, they tend to talk about, and it tends to come out. But we've got this Jupiter down here that's setting a framework, I guess. This is what we're going to focus on, how we're going to channel and control that energy. And that introduces fire
Oh,
to
yeah, I see the
that
trine
water
there.
energy on the chart. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see that.
What we also see here, because we've identified this opposition between the chart ruler Venus over there in Aries and Libra over there, the ascendant, we've got a trine running up to Mars up the top of the chart in Gemini, and then a sextile running down. So what that's saying is Mars has stepped into the scenario in the 8th house, and it's become a negotiator, a bridge, a diplomat that's able to allow us to get these energies to start flowing and working together. Does that make sense?
The action part of the chart. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we've got an opposition. We've talked about, so Nancy identified at a point in her life, I need to start developing a persona that's going to be more focused on other, that's going to be more confident and more outgoing and more direct if I'm going to achieve the things in life that I want to achieve. But what we immediately see here is there's an opposition between there. Now, we talked about before, at least in a professional capacity, she has a terms of reference when it comes to a work scenario or anything like that, or anything service focused on other people. But that doesn't necessarily offer to anything to her as a person from an ascendant point of view. Now, what we've got here, when you look at that placement, is we've got Mars up the top now, because energy does not flow in an opposition. It's immediately blocked. But what we've got now is a transit point up here where energy can flow. If you follow, we've got a blue line that's running up to Mars and then running straight back down to that Venus in Aries now. That's become a way for that energy to flow, because it cannot flow directly as a square. And what that means is, in the development of this persona we're talking about, Mars in Gemini in the 8th house has become a point of negotiation. It's become a way of alleviating the stress of that opposition. And something's happened in that house that is allowing that energy to now flow. So it's like, that's the thing about water. Wherever you put water, when it sits long enough, it will always find a way to move. Okay. And this is what we're seeing here. We're seeing this opposition where energies are not able to communicate with each other. So what's happened is it's found a way to flow in a different direction. And that point is the point that of attraction where the energy is flowing and then it's flowing back. It doesn't happen every time, but it's happening on this chart. And that is alleviating that opposition there. So Mars in Gemini up there in the 8th house, how might that express? What's
Multiple
Mars?
personalities.
Yeah, yeah. What is Mars? What does Mars represent?
Action, war, uh, it's
Energy.
right. Courage,
Mhm.
kind of like
Mhm.
Mars is the
The
planet of,
drive, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. That's drive. That's perfect. That's where I was
yeah.
going.
That's right. That puts a nice stamp on it. Okay, now we take that drive and we apply it in a Gemini sense. What do we get?
Intellectual, because it's an air sign. And then the Gemini is the 2. So you have, it's giving her the ability to create that alternate personality when she needs to. Um, because the energy is flowing so nicely, like you said, to Venus. Um, so yeah, so Mars is giving her the drive to be who she needs to be, to go out and do what she has to do to serve the purpose that she's clearly here for, because she's got the finger of God pointing at her.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great read. Now, if we look at Mars as a tool and we look at Gemini as a method of employing that tool, what do we know about Geminis? What's probably their most effective tool when it comes to working with people?
Communication, talking.
Absolutely.
Communications. Mhm.
So we're seeing another emphasis in communication here again too. And if I'm to oversimplify that, Mars and Gemini is just direct communication. It's directed
Mhm.
communication. It's rallying up that cardinal energy on the chart and using it as a communication tool. Now, in the 8th house, what
Nice.
might we see there? How might that express? That's where it starts getting interesting. And if we looked at it, just what is the 8th house rule? And let's ignore everything else we've talked about on the chart and just look at the 8th house. What is that?
It's like the
Shared
merging, the sharing.
finances.
Sorry, Sydney?
Yeah, I was just saying the merging, the sharing of things. So it's finances, marriage.
Yep. And it's involving other people. It's not something
Yeah.
that is happening just for ourselves. So it is, I'm consciously making a choice to communicate with other people as a way to open my world, as a way to open opportunities and doors for me, and to allow me to become the person that I want to be. Does that sound like it could be an interesting read on how to interpret that?
Yes, because her job, what she does for a living, or her career, her calling, she has to be tough, and she has to have that exterior. She has to be kind of like a warrior going into battle every day, because she's going to these patients' house, and she's having to put on that armor, I guess, in a sense, and go out and be the person, that everybody needs. She's the person that everybody else needs in all the situations that she enters into. And Mars just helps. And Mars being in Gemini gives her the ability to, I guess, adapt in a sense to any situation that she finds herself in.
Agreed. I think that sounds like a really, really solid read. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add to this at the moment, just based on what we're looking at? Okay. So let's strip out all the personal planets and just look at the transpersonal planets. Again, too, when I look at transpersonal planets on the chart, these planets don't move a lot. So what you'll find is anybody born around this time will have these 3 planets roughly in that same placement, just in different parts of the chart. Yeah. And the way I interpret that is, you're born into a particular time where certain things are happening in the world, and all the people in that world are responding to it in a certain way. But based on where you were born and the environment that you were brought into and the people that you were born around, this is how it's impacted you. These are the parts of your life where these particular key areas have influenced your growth and influenced your personality and your perspective on the world. So if we just look at these 3 planets here right now, and we'll probably get through this bit pretty quickly, but what story might this tell us? We've got Uranus up the top in the 10th house. We've got Pluto in the 11th house, which is an interesting placement. And we've got Neptune down there in the 1st house. What does Neptune represent? At a
It's
generational
like a
level. Sorry.
Dreams.
Yep.
illusion. Yeah.
Yep. Religion.
What was the question?
What does Neptune represent on the chart?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I got like 6 kids in here in the background. They
That's
so
right.
loud. Yeah, I agree with the dreams illusion. It's about they say it's the farthest planet you can't see with your eye. So it's about seeing things that doesn't exist. It's a whole illusion. That's the way I look at it. Come on, y'all.
Yep. Also at a generational level, it can represent beliefs, it can represent faith, it can represent myopia, beliefs that people may have that are carried over from previous generations that probably may not be accurate now. But we still continue to believe those things anyway until we're ready to let them go. It can represent, when you see really powerfully aspected Neptune on a chart, around that time religion can be powerful.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And also values can be very, very powerful too, with social values. The difference between ethics and morals, you know, ethics are personal, morals tend to apply to everybody. And we see morality in Neptune as well. So that can be another thing too. And in the first house, it may suggest, for example, I don't know, Nancy, when you were growing up, was religion particularly important, either in your house or where you lived, in your school, in your day-to-day life? Did you see religion play a part?
I saw a fair amount.
Mm.
I wouldn't say it was super constant, but we were raised in the church and we went to church regularly, and being in the South, the people you were surrounded by were very religious as well.
Okay.
Bible Belt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I could expound on that, but I won't.
Okay. All right. That may have been a factor. Pluto in the 11th house. How might we see that playing out? At least, I mean, this is. Can I ask, Nancy? This is 1950s. You were born
59.
59, right at the end of the 50s. So, what was happening in the 50s? We were looking at post World War II. I think a new world was starting. We were seeing a shift in values and things like that. So I know that society became a lot more inclusive for women in the 50s. Am I right? From the late 40s after post World War II, women had already been doing roles that men had traditionally been involved in, and it was starting to become, you know, a thing now. Women were becoming more participatory in society and working and things like that too. So, yeah, groups were changing. Yeah. Anyway, all right. I was tempted to put this in, but I think we're going to skip by this. This was going to looking at the chart from an esoteric point of view, what might have been happening at a spiritual level. We're pushing for time. I think I might skip that for today. That's something we can maybe come back and look at another time. But that does put an interesting spin on that yod that we saw on the chart there. So I'll going to move on from that and bring us right back to where we started. So all of those things taken into account, if we were to try and wrap it up and put a bow on it, if we take a moment and look at that, just from breaking it down, from looking at the personal planets, looking at the transpersonal planets, and then returning to this, do we see a clearer chart playing out?
Absolutely.
Yes, there's a lot going on in the 6th house related, and that Mars, looking at the flow of the energy is apparent with the trines pointing over to the 6th house to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. It also tells the story of a 5th house sun and Pisces transitioning into the 6th house and becoming a lot more 6th house focused. It's an evolution from being a water sign, a mutable water sign, to being more fire. It's the cultivation of fire qualities in this lifetime. in order to become the person that we want to be. When you look at it on the chart, it looks like a short journey, but when you look at everything that's happening in the chart, it's drawing from all these different areas on the chart. And we have seen a tangible story now, you know, where you can see how this chart's come together. And it's, from that point of view, it's quite a curated chart. It's a person who's taken stock of this random looking pattern and decided, okay, I'm going to use this, and this is what I'm going to produce. This is what I want. It's like the I Ching, you know, you start with where you are, you plot where you want to be, and then you just plot the steps in between. And this is a person who's done exactly that, who's looked at the charts and said, all right, I've got strengths here, I've got strengths here, and I'm going to use these and I'm going to rally these up to cultivate and create this persona that I need in order to be this person that I want to be. And the funny thing is, you know, we see all these charts all the time where it looks like there's a definite story happening and everything's going to happen in a certain way. And this, to me, when I first looked at it, is just chaos. It's absolute chaos. But what we've seen is Nancy's managed to take this chaos and she's identified the key areas that she's wanted to work with, and she's rallied them and she's used them, and she's driven them pretty hard in order to create a sort of life that she wants. Does that sound fairly accurate, Nancy? Have we managed to stay sort of on track as we've gone?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It does.
Does anybody have anything they want to add to this? Because we've just jumped right back to the beginning now. This is very Tarantino with backstory.
There is something I wanted to say.
Yeah. So
I don't know if this is important or not, but I was just noticing, what does it mean that all the transpersonal planets are in retrograde? Would that be important? I just noticed
generally,
that.
you know what? If it's retrograde for her, it's retrograde for everybody who was born around that time. We don't tend to put a lot of emphasis on, when we look at it from a generational point of view. No, it just reflects at the time. This is the posture of the times. This is the time that people were born into. It can, on a personal level, however, sure, we can give it emphasis, but we'd have to understand the person's journey and their evolution in order to really understand that. I think you need to question them. You need to identify those particular planets and then ask them questions about that. And where you may do that from looking at this chart, for example, might be, we look at that Uranus up there, career, it's in retrograde, it's in Leo. We may need to explore, what is career to you? You know, what's the most important part to you? And I think we talked about change before. We identified how change happened in that career. If that Uranus wasn't in retrograde, she may have jumped around from job to job. But what we've seen is she successfully managed to stay as in the health industry for 25 years as a theatre nurse, transitioning over to palliative care. So that random, you know, burn down and start again energy of Uranus retrograde may not have been expressing the same way. It may have allowed her to stay in the same industry, but choose an industry where the rapid change that's happening all the time is happening within the job, and that may satisfy that. That's one way of looking at that.
Actually, yes, I agree. Because now that you think, she's a hospice nurse, so maybe that means that, like, the different changes and the unexpected things, maybe the people that's revolt, you know, I hate to say it, but the people that you're losing and you're getting again, the people that you're losing, you know, the people that's dying, I had to say it, I'm sorry, but maybe that's what, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I get it.
And if you, from the point of view where you've come in there, Crystal, where you're talking about loss, about mortality, that would lead us over to Pluto, and we've got Pluto in retrograde, and we'd ask questions about that and we'd explore that. What we haven't noticed is, or haven't put emphasis on, is we've got a trine running between the two great malefics there. We've got a trine running down to Saturn there in the third house, which is very, very happily sitting in Capricorn, running up to Pluto, which is sitting there in Virgo. And again, too, that Pluto is in retrograde. So again, we'd question that with the client. We'd ask them, and with the help of the client, by interacting with our client, we would unpack how that retrograde energy expressed in their lives. socially, politically around that time, because Pluto tends to be connected to politics. Same with Uranus as well. What are we looking at? The 50s. We're looking at McCarthyism around that time. We're looking at a time where people are banding up, and you know, the values of the time were quite strict, and they were quite exclusive of outsiders. They weren't. That's not something that was encouraged back in those days. There was a very strong moral code. So that may be somewhere we could start, and we could talk about that. But I think you're on a great track there, Pluto. Just while we're talking about it too, we've got this, everything again too is pointing back to the sun down the bottom. We've got this trine running from the midheaven down there, and we've got Neptune in the first house, which is running a trine off to that sun too. So that sun again with this yod has got these other big things happening around it that are all pointing off there. And really again, so we were to stand back and look at this as a story. We are looking at the evolution of a sun. We're looking at a sun that the cultivation of the personality that must take a journey. And we've got all this energy that's pointing and all this emphasis that's happening and focusing on this one point. And it's all about that sun making that journey from the 5th house into the 6th house to be more service orientated, to become more consciously available to others. And through service and through working to others, we put aside our own inconsistency, our own mutability, our own cardinal drive to go and chase after the things that we want, and we make ourselves available to other people, because that's what the 6th house does. We create a stronger personality that's able to do that and rally and produce all the energy that we need in order to become that effective person. And I think just by summing that up the way we've done, we've managed to arrive right at the point of the question that Nancy asked. Okay, so I've been available to other people all my life. I've been taking this journey, and I've allowed myself to grow and become this other person who's more available to others. How do I look after me now? What's the next part of the story for me? We'd probably be looking at a predictive chart to a greater or lesser degree on how to do that. But if we just looked at it natally, and there's always clues on the way life's supposed to lead there, what might we see on this chart? We've got a sun.
Can you
Sorry, go, Crystal.
Can you ask the question again?
Before I asked Crystal, I asked Nancy. So, if we were to look for something in this chart for you, if we were to answer a question, what would it be? And Nancy's answer to that was through her work, through being a hospice nurse, she sees people who've reached the end of their life unprepared, I guess. So they, they haven't been ready for this part of their lives. And I'm paraphrasing here, Nancy, and she wants to look for security in her chart. So much of her energy in her life has been, and we've talked about it, has been becoming this person that's more available to others. But in this part of her life, how does she look after herself more? How does she find security in this chart? Where is she looking for that? Does anybody have any thoughts?
I'm looking at the nodes, but where would she find security? I would say maybe the moon in Capricorn might be the issue. Ain't that where you will find your roots and your security? Ain't that your most private place, is the 4th house?
That's home.
House
It's
of home,
family.
Yeah, but like on a personal level, where would you find your most, you know what I mean? Where would you feel more grounded? Wouldn't that be the roots of everything? Like, I don't know. I thought that maybe that was your most private self, like where you need to be grounded and stuff at. So the security, I would thought would be the 4th house, but I could be wrong. I see the nodes is really saying that that's probably her destiny, is to go from being in the people pleasing energy to more independent, or maybe she was too independent before. Okay, hold up. I'm sorry. No, her node is in the Aries, so that means she may need to get out of that energy and be more into her fairness, just diplomatic. But as far as finding security, I'm not really sure. I'm only looking
Okay.
at the fourth house. I don't know what else I need to be looking at.
What about the second house with Jupiter? Second house would be security, financial security, right? And then Jupiter being the planet of
That,
expansion and good luck and all of that. Maybe
that,
it's the second house.
Yeah, that
Maybe
sounds good.
she's like she said, I
yeah.
think she said, but maybe even though she doesn't feel prepared, she's more prepared than she actually thinks she is in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the second house tells me that with Jupiter being in the second house, it tells me that she doesn't really need to worry about finances
Finances.
as
Yeah, that's what I
right.
said.
And
Mm-hmm.
right. So and we all know that not worrying about finances translates into security because, you know,
Yes,
unfortunately. So that just gives me the idea that she's not going to have to worry, that she'll be taken care of because Jupiter's
I
sitting right
agree.
there in the second house. Cool.
I agree.
When you raised that point before, Nancy, when you were talking about security and preparedness, what does that mean to you?
Probably be take care of myself without any help,
Mhm.
or to not pin my hopes on any outside help would be probably more so.
So independence is important to you, being able
Mhm.
to age independently, to live how you want without reliance on other people.
Sure.
Does that, are we going in the right direction if we look at it that way?
I think that's what she's asking about, Damien. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
And again, to the second house gives me the idea that she won't have to worry about that, because even if for some reason she is here with no family, and she's needing the assistance or somebody needs to take care of her, second house, that Jupiter in the second house tells me that that won't be an issue, that she'll be taken care
Right.
of. You know what I mean? One
And
way
it's
or another.
exalt. Yeah, it's
Right.
home too. So yeah, that looks like a good sign to me.
Um,
Until you look at the square up there with, maybe it's a square up there with the MC. Um, but I see good. I don't know. I guess I'm still
to
not sure about the question.
yeah, to go back to Nancy, I feel like she's trying to say that she wants to be more self-sufficient. I don't know if it's the same as
Mm,
getting the help that you want.
standing on your own, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that what you mean, Nancy?
Well, and bottom line, I would like to feel like I'm able to take care of myself without depending on other people's well
Yeah.
thoughts, but not being able to, provide what they would like to. If
is
that
there,
makes sense.
if I was, can I ask, are you concerned about being a burden on other people as you get older, or do you not want to emotionally be in a position where you feel that you have to rely on other people? That the way that
Well, big concern is not having any other people to depend on, without being a burden.
okay. We're
Mm,
talking about health, aren't we? We're talking about deteriorating physical health. Are you coming in from that point of view? Are you seeing a scenario where you may become physically too unable to care for yourself, and wondering what will happen after that?
Well, I see it every day.
Yeah, yeah.
I see it every day. And when that's your scenario on a daily basis, sure, you're going to think about it. And
do you have a
with
variety of resources?
no, and there's only two people left in my family,
Mm.
me and my
Oh,
sister. Yeah,
oh,
and
okay.
probably three, but
Okay.
that's
So that,
more. What is
uh,
that picture going to look like?
sure. If
And
just based on
when
what
you
you're
see it
saying, one
every
thing,
day,
sure. Okay. So we're seeing an emphasis on health here. Would you agree, Sydney? I think that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at health and how our health may impact our
well,
relationship to the world. Um, yeah. So if I was to look at that, one thing that we can see there in terms of health, probably the two bigger challenges from a health point of view, if we just look, or the three bigger challenges, I suppose, are going to be this. Your career, you've got a square running up to that midheaven that I think crystal spotted. We've also got a sesquiquadrate running from Uranus down to Mercury. When it comes to physical health, when you're looking on a chart from a medical point of view, hello, Antoinette. Oh my gosh, you just snuck in there like a ninja. Sesquiquadrates are a good point to look at in a chart from a medical and a health point of view. They can highlight where things can happen, where vulnerable points can happen in terms of health. They're worth paying attention to, and both of those are pointing up to your house of career. So in terms of maintaining your physical health and living your body being in a state where you can care for yourself, just at a superficial point of view, that may say if you work too long, that may take a bearing on your health. Oh, I can see your face change when I said that. Is that right or is that wrong?
The laugh comes in is, are you going to work and support yourself?
Yeah.
Or going to take care of your health? I mean, that's,
yeah,
kind of scenario in the situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up that opposition there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Actually, you've put your finger right on it there, Sydney, because we've created this other persona to help other people, but the longer we're doing it, the less we're helping ourselves. And that opposition is going to keep, as the longer it goes on, that opposition is going to create an urgency about that. Well, we've got to look after ourselves at this point too. How do we do that and continue to be the person that we want to be? Well, what we've already discovered from looking at this chart is that communications, the bridging point between this isolated self and this effective, fiery person who's of service and availability to others. Yeah. So we're seeing communication, obviously keeping communication, the channels of communication open, because they've gotten you this far, are probably going to be your most effective tools in doing that. Those channels point off to Mars in the 8th house, and we've spotted that alleviates that opposition running from the ascendant and the north node off to that 6th house stuff there. So other people's money, working with other people from that point of view, and that's going to be vitally important. But we've also got Jupiter down there in the 2nd house too, and I think as Michael has pointed out, from a finance point of view, at least, I think there's always going to be a degree of luck there. And I know it's such a practical chart, you probably don't want to rely on that, especially when you've been given these vivid examples every day of people who've pushed their luck maybe, or just haven't had luck to begin with. That can be a really, really challenging place to go. But as Michael said, and I agree, there's there's a softness there on your chart that says that there is fortune that's in that part of your life, that there will always be a degree of money. It might not always be as much as you want or you used to, but it won't go away. And Sagittarius, being in Sagittarius, that really, really emphasizes that too. Did you see anything else in that placement, Sydney, or on the chart that you think might help in that scenario?
No, nothing else that points out to me. I mean, I'm still very new to all of this, but yeah.
Anybody else see anything else too? I'm suddenly seeing all these T-squares popping up on the chart too, the longer I look at it.
Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of saying initially. I think you've heard trines, but I meant the T-squares. There are like a bunch of T-squares in there.
Yeah. They're happening in the places that we're expecting them to as well, based on what we've observed. That moon down the bottom of the chart, family's not prominent, and it's in its detriment there too. So it never would have been. And when we're talking family, I'm talking the nuclear family. You know, the everybody in a home, a boy, a girl, two happy parents, all of that sort of stuff. It's not strong and emphasized on the chart. Everything for you is happening in the 5th house. We haven't even began to talk about creativity or working with that inner child side of yourself too, which I think Pisces energy gives. And in the 6th house, everything to do with health. You know, they seem to be the tail of the tape. That's where the big stuff's happening on the chart, and everything else is an accessory to that. Does anybody else have anything to add?
You want to say anything
Um,
about Saturn? Go ahead, Sydney.
yeah, like I don't know if you've talked much about the MC, but there's like a bunch of these opposition and squares that the MC is forming with like the ascendant or I guess that's the north or the south node. So I don't know if there would be something interesting to talk about the MC.
If I was to talk about that, you know, quite often on the MC we're looking for a greater purpose,
Yeah,
you know, a goal, a way that we can make ourselves available to the world of fate that's waiting for us. But when we look at this chart, we're seeing all this energy pointing to the sixth house, and that's
yeah,
all about other people. You know, it's not about you. Um, when I look at it from an esoteric point of view, I see somebody who has been told in this lifetime to work on yourself. We want to turn from being a water person into a fire person. That's what this journey is going to be this time around. And we're going to do it for
mm,
other people. So you're not going to do it for you. It's not going to make you famous, but it's going to make you effective. And it's like a phoenix transformation. You know what I mean? We've come to this lifetime to evolve, to be less emotional, less intuitive, and to start working with the will, with fire, and to use our intuition and all of those tools that we've got as a water sign to make ourselves more effective for other people. And it's all pointing hard at that Pluto sun down there, with that yod pattern that we've got there with those trines that are pointing to it, and it's created an evolution off into that sixth house energy. So from that and that midheaven up there in a water sign, I think that big T square we see there disables that for exactly that reason. It's
mhm.
not going to be about that this lifetime. I'm looking at it again from a point of the esoteric point of view. We're here to make
Right.
ourselves available for other people.
So I'm just giving like a general like pattern analysis of like when you see such a point like right now the MC, which has like so many squares that are popping off and opposition, you see like the energy is, instead of it being the focal point, it's like the energy is coming out and not towards MC. It's rather than, in this case, it's going to be like either the sun or Mercury, and it's going away from that point. That's how you see things.
Yeah,
Is that yeah,
that's
okay?
my take on it. And if anybody else
Yeah.
has anything to add, by all means, please do. You know, please get involved. Hello, Gianna. My gosh, you just snuck in there. We've had some time confusion this time, and I'll address it this week. But it's got everything to do with the fact that Queensland, the state I live in, doesn't have daylight savings. I didn't know daylight savings had
Mm.
happened. Michael desperately rallied around and tried to make this work, but we've had a few casualties. I can see that. But getting back to what you were saying, Sydney, yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it really is. It's about an evolution of personality, a transition out of water into fire, and it's about being lost. I mean, Pisces is the one sign that tends to react and respond and get sucked into everything that's happening around it. We're not going to do that this time. We're going to evolve, we're going to grow, and we're going to make ourselves available to others. When you look at a chart from an esoteric point of view, the moon represents a past life, the sun a present life, the ascendant is the future life, it's the next life or the lives to come. We're not doing family this time. The moon is not aspected well at all on this chart. And like the midheaven, we're not going to go out chasing after bigger destinies. The midheaven's been disabled. We're going to take this water personality that you've got, which is the sun on this chart, and we're going to take the strengths that we have in that, and we're going to evolve into a fire sign. We're going to cultivate fire qualities in this lifetime, and but it's all pointing off to air in the long game. We're going to use fire to steam off some of that water, and we're going to take on some more air qualities in this lifetime. And we're going to do that by making ourselves available to other people. That's how I'd wrap that up.
Could you speak to the future life aspect?
Yeah. There's a branch of astrology called esoteric astrology, and when you look at it from that point of view, it's easy for me to see a story of evolution in the chart. You can find a comparison within the same lifetime where you can describe that journey. For me, I'm finding a really lazy way to just sort of tell that story. But I see that piqued your interest. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I strongly believe that I've had several other lives and kind of some hints throughout this lifetime, and just was kind of interested in, what benefit I'm gaining this lifetime to carry over, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
From the esoteric point of view, esoteric astrology assumes that in between lives we choose our next manifestation. We choose, we curate our experience. We make decisions. This is how I want to evolve and I want to grow. It's not everybody's cup of tea. And what that does, that presents us with the idea that we've manifested the life that we've got. And for people who've had really difficult lives, that can be a real kick in the guts, while other people it makes more sense. But what it tells us is that we've come in this life to achieve something, and it's not always to be famous. It's not always to be something like that. But we have made conscious choices to manifest in a certain way. When I look at the way you've taken this absolutely chaotic chart and you've rallied your strength up and you've really, really focused to evolve, the story that I've just described, you've lived to a T. You're doing it absolutely. So from that point of view, I would have to say bravo. I mean, you've done a fantastic job. You've really lived out your brief, and it sounds like you've reached the point where you're getting towards the end of the mission and you're preparing for the next one. So I can only say that, I think you've taken this chart, which could have gone in any direction, and you've really, really turned it into something. I think it's amazing. It's great from that point of view. It's been interesting too, that from looking at this and from pulling it apart, we've actually managed to tell that story. We've actually managed to find our way there. It's been a fascinating session from that point of view. What do you think?
Oh, I think so too. I think that a lot of it was spot on and exactly what's occurred.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Wow. Well, does anybody have any other thoughts? Anything they want to add to where we've come to? I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping this up. Does anybody have any thoughts? Anything they want to add we might have missed? Okay, no worries. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a really, really interesting session. We've got so many new faces too, and that's lovely. It's great seeing all these people here for us, and I hope that you will come back for future sessions. I think this has been a particularly exhausting one, and I know I've talked a lot and I've pushed for a lot of answers and things like that.
Oh,
But, I think it's important. I think, we've come here to learn, and I really want to push people in doing this without making it as uncomfortable as I can.
I say all y'all, it definitely was enlightening.
Well, Nancy, I'll put the same offer to you. I put to everybody else who we read for. If at some point things change and you want to come back and talk to the group, just hit up Michael and we'll set up a time and we can run another session. We're happy to. The door's always open for you. You're welcome to come back.
Sounds great. I appreciate that.
You're welcome to. Thank you so much for sharing yourself with the group. We
all-
really appreciate that.
Thank you, Nancy. Get some
Thank
rest.
y'all. That's
I know
fine.
that you've had a hard, long week, and we really appreciate
Got
you
it.
spending.
But no, I appreciate y'all.
Well, thank you. Thank you
Y'all
for giving
have
us.
a good day, night. Or, I love you, Michael Lynn. Thank you very much.
Love you too. Love you too. Bye. Good night.
Sorry, guys. I had a whole concert going on in the background, so I was so scared to push unmute. There was no way I was pushing
You can only
unmute. So I
hold them
couldn't
back for so long. Yeah.
I'll be more present next time. I'll make sure I go into a secluded area.
It's all right.
Good luck
It was
with
great.
that.
There was almost no interference or anything, Crystal. It's lovely having you in the group. It's always good having your energy. I love your fire energy.
Thank you. Always good to be here.
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop recording, but you're welcome to stick around and chat and debrief. But thank you, everybody. Today's reading was particularly amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. These charts for me are the most challenging. They're the most difficult to work with. And I felt we really, really arrived at a really interesting and really tangible point. That was validated a lot by the feedback that we got from Nancy. So we did a great job, I think, from that point of view. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.